and without aiming the firearm.
Mm-hmm.
It's just simple hand-eye coordination is something that we emphasize greatly out here is the use of a laser.
Yeah.
Now, firearms instructors hate lasers because that's it takes away their bread and butter.
Mm.
If you don't have a laser on a gun, then I've got to start teaching you about breath control, trigger pull or push, whatever the buzzword is, front sight post, grip, stance, all these bread and butter items. But if I have a laser on the gun and it's just hand and eye coordination, it takes the skill of shooting out of shooting. And then people will say, well, what if you don't have time to turn the laser on? Well, every time you train with a laser, you're building a neural pathway or muscle memory as to where the gun needs to be instinctively to hit surgically. Yeah. So training with a laser builds that instinctive fire almost precisely.
Yeah. Well, that's really good to know. I used to think like, I don't know if I really want a laser on my gun because I want to be able to shoot without it and be accurate without it. But makes complete sense as to how that can train you to be accurate without having to look through your sights necessarily.
Right.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, iron sights do the same thing for you. So if you could correlate a laser and an iron sights the same way. So if you're always looking down the barrel, lining your rear sights and front sights up, you're building muscle memory to instinctively hold the gun just at presentation level. Whereas with a laser on it, you don't need to fully present the gun. It can come right out of the holster, and hand and eye coordination can put the laser on target.
Right.
It also acts as a great non-deterrent. Because as citizens, we have to consider there's not only the literal threat, there's also a legal threat. And if we make the wrong decision, mortgage the house, get you a good criminal defense attorney because you're going to need
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And so...
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So you guys, obviously you recommend lasers, but you guys also train with 22s on your range. And so... I was curious what your opinion was on having a 22 on you for self-defense, because a lot of people say that that's not big enough for stopping power reasons. Talk to me about that.
Well, let me start off with when we started building the range, we saw our kids and how we could train the kids so easily with a 22, right? Even our daughter at the time was 7 years old, and she was laying her AR-15 with a 22 bolt adapter through the rail on the fence, and she was shooting and hitting it pretty good. So that was the correlation which spawned us to bring 22s to the firearms training environment. So for self-defense, when we started out, it was only to be a training tool, the 22. If you would have told me that using a 22 for self-defense was a plausible choice, I would have started arguing with you. After having several women, ladies come to our course a little bit later in age, dealing with rheumatoid arthritis, and some with injury. They just simply couldn't manage a slide from a centerfire firearm, and they had 22s. And I'd always get asked the question, hey, what do you think about using this for self-defense? And my response was, something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a 22 than a slingshot. So it made me kind of go into, because I'm always trying to build the confidence of our guests, and especially the ladies. And I felt so sorry for them. They just couldn't manage anything bigger. And so I said, let me research this out and let me see what the history of the 22. And I started going deeper and deeper, and Ashley was helping me. We were researching this stuff. We looked at the military application from Israel to the United States in a military capacity. And the 22 has been used exclusively. The 22 is still used by our special operations community today.
Really?
The Smith & Wesson Victory suppressed. It accounted for more rooftop kills of ladder teams going up, because as drones would fly over, they would know that Taliban fighters on these rooftops, underneath that roof was a layer or apartment of civilians. So you just couldn't blast the rooftop. So a ladder team would go up, and the first guy with it would have a 22 suppressed firearm. All done.
Okay.
Sentries, guard dogs. Amazing. Our country has used it exclusively. The forerunner before the Special Forces of the Green Beret and the CIA was called the Office of Strategic Service. They used the 22 suppressed for killing Nazis up close and personal and quiet in World War II. The U-2 pilots, the intelligence reconnaissance flights over the old Soviet bloc countries, our Department of Defense had the ability to arm them with any caliber they had at their disposal. But why did they choose a 22 caliber subsonic? Because if that pilot was shot down, he could kill at close quarters without having to give their position away.
Uh-huh.
So from Nazis to the Cold War to Israelis actually used the Beretta Model 70 chambered in 22. They're Sky Marshals. There are Saruk Markel Commandos killing terrorists in 69 and 72 on airliners with a 22.
So what you're telling me is you need your own episode on Mythbusters.
I'm telling you, really, here's what it did. The reality is this, is that Ashley and I now carry a 22 for self-defense. And the reason is that once we saw the capability of a 22, ballistically, it'll split your head open, and it'll bury into your chest and bite and compromise the heart. Is that it brought up this question: what is the priority in a gunfight? The size of the bullet or the accuracy of the bullet you can fire?
The accuracy.